Hey, welcome back to Tech Tip Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about what goes into a pattern description. And I'm hoping I make a pretty compelling case for including these in your pattern. I used to think it wasn't that important, and then kind of as the years have gone on and I've seen it working really well in some of my clients' patterns, as well as kind of the evolution of AI as it's really started to take off, I've become increasingly convinced that this is actually a pretty important part of your pattern. So we're going to talk about what exactly it is and then some best practices for how to include them, what to do, what not to do, all the good things. Alrighty, so what the heck am I talking about when I talk about a pattern description? Well, this is a really great example. This is the Fjord Star quilt pattern by Scandi Quilts. And she does a really great job at kind of including a pattern description in all of her patterns. And what it is it just talks about the inspiration for the pattern and how it came about. So if there's a story behind how you came up with the design, what inspired you to make the design, all of those kind of details, that's kind of what she communicates in this pattern description. And it's really short, it's just a couple of paragraphs, but it gives something for your reader to really latch onto and connect with the pattern. And as AI kind of takes over and makes everything really impersonal, that is becoming more important than ever. So you can see here, she's talking about how she was inspired by the fjords in Norway, and the flying geese design in the middle of the stars is reflective of how the fjords reflect off the ocean and vice versa, right? And so it's just kind of this really tangible, specific imagery that allows your reader to just really connect with the inspiration for the design. Let's look at another example. So this is one by Abby Maid, and she is another designer that does a really good job of including kind of a pattern description with all of her designs. This is her snow glow quilt, and you can see she's talking about how it reminds her of, wintertime where the kids are going out and playing sledding in the neighborhood, building snowmen, all of those things, right? Those really familiar memories that a lot of people share that really taps into the emotional part of making a quilt. And sometimes in these pattern descriptions, you'll also include a short bio about yourself, maybe an image of yourself, right? Again, helping your reader to kind of connect with you as the author and then as the designer. That piece of connection is becoming so critical in the age of AI, and a lot of people are really craving it. And so anything you can do to kind of promote that and encourage that connection is going to make your quilt pattern kind of that much more relatable and personal to your reader, and that's a really good thing. But you can also do two separate sections, right? You can have kind of the design inspiration or the pattern description with maybe an image of whatever inspired you to create the pattern. If there's like a photograph that you took in nature and that's really where the design came from, go ahead and include those. And then you can have a separate section where you talk about yourself, you as the designer, your bio, and that's totally fine. Or you can combine them kind of like Abby Maid does. I think either way is perfectly fine. But what you really want to do is just not skip this section altogether. And the reason for that is because this is how you connect with your reader, and that's so important, especially nowadays. So let's talk about some best practices for these pattern descriptions. The first is to make sure that you're telling a story to help your reader connect to the design. We've kind of talked about this, but it's tapping into those emotional aspects of quilting rather than it just being, here's the pattern, here's the design, make the cool thing, bye-bye, right? We want to tap into the emotions a little bit more. It's a creative pursuit. There's always going to be emotions involved. And so the more that you can kind of tap into that and connect with your reader, the better experience they're going to have. You also want to keep it short, but not generic, right? So we saw in kind of the Scandi Quilts description, it was only a couple of paragraphs, and that's just fine. You don't need to have a book at the front of your pattern talking about how you came up with this design. That is way too overkill. But a couple of short paragraphs that are very specific, right? Your specific inspiration for this design, not just like some generic, oh, I like flowers and nature, right? Stuff that's going to come off as generic is really repulsive now that there is so much AI about that can just kind of spit out this generic stuff all the time. People really pick up on that. It comes off as inauthentic, and it's such a turnoff for so many people right now because there's just so much of it flooding the marketplace right now. So if you're going to include it, make sure you're very specific. Your specific imagery, right? Your specific story, not just like a generic inspiration. And if you don't have like this deep inspiration for design, that's okay. Talk about, what it reminds you of or something like that. So what you're seeing here on the left is my pattern wonky woven. It's a take on a French braid. It's nothing special, right? But this makes me feel like that kind of topsy-turvy chunky knit. And I really enjoy that. And so in my pattern description, I think this is what I ended up talking about a little bit. Now, what you also want to do is kind of use the same inspiration story in some of your like marketing through lines. That's a really good thing to do again. So as you're kind of leading up to the pattern launch for this design, this pattern, you can talk about, what inspired it and have a whole series of social media posts or email communications about your inspiration for it and kind of connecting on that emotional level, which also encourages people to buy. So it kind of has a double whammy there. It can help you with your marketing as well. And then kind of really, really importantly, you want to write using words like you and I. Do not write in the third person, guys. Again, this is personal. You're talking about your inspiration for it, and you're talking to your reader, them specifically. And you're not talking in third person about yourself, right? It's not a magazine bio where you're talking about Carly in the third person. That's not going to help your reader connect. And it feels really weird, especially when you're the author writing about yourself. So it's not like something that you need to professionally do, because in, way back in the day, when you would write a bio, it would be in third person. That's kind of gone away completely. And I think it's for the best at this point. So you definitely want to talk about your specific inspiration using words like you and I, right? Talk to a specific person rather than just like general audiences. And then the last thing that I recommend doing is including like a little picture of yourself, right? Again, helping your reader connect with you as the designer or of your inspiration. So if you really, really hate pictures of yourself like I do, you can definitely use a picture of whatever inspired the design. So if it's, a beautiful mountain landscape that you took on vacation and that's what inspired it, go ahead and include that photo. It's, again, just another way for your reader to connect to you and to the design, which makes the process of making the quilt that much more personal for them. And that's a really good thing. Alrighty, I hope that was helpful. For a long time, my first couple of patterns, I didn't include any of this information, right? It was like bio, nobody wants to hear about me. Pattern description, nobody wants to read that. They just want to get into the pattern. They like the design. That's all they need out of this. That opinion has changed drastically over time, and a lot of it is because just so many people out there are creating connection more and more as kind of time goes on, and the internet is flooded with all of this stuff that you don't really know what is real and what isn't. And there's a lot of kind of division politically right now as well. And all of that has kind of come together to make this environment where people are craving community. And so anything that you can do to try and give that little pocket of connection through your products, which are your patterns, or through your social media, through kind of these stories and things that go into coming up with the design, that's going to be a really good thing. Alrighty, that's all I've got for today. I will see you next time for Tech Tip Tuesday. See ya!